Hey there, history buffs! Today, we're diving into a fascinating chapter of history, the story of Anastasia Romanov, a Russian princess who survived the tragic events of her time. Anastasia Romanov, a member of the Russian royal family, was born on June 18, 1901, in St. Petersburg. She was the youngest daughter of Tsar Nicholas II and Alexandra Fyodorovna. Anastasia's life was filled with both joy and tragedy, as she experienced the highs of royal life and the lows of the Russian Revolution. On July 17, 1918. And don't forget to follow and subscribe to help us grow our channel. What was the fate of Anastasia Romanov? Was any member of the Russian royal family saved? The bitter chill of the Russian night clung to the walls of the Ipatiev House. Thunder rumbled low in the distance, echoing like a final drumroll for a dynasty that once ruled over the largest empire on earth. The Romanovs, Russia's last imperial family, huddled together in the dim, oppressive basement, oblivious to the exact moment history would crush their lineage forever. Yet from this tragedy would rise one of the most persistent mysteries of the 20th century. Did Anastasia Romanov survive? And if so, what really happened on that fateful night in July 1918? The fall of a great dynasty. By the spring of 1917, the House of Romanov had fallen like a great bear pierced by 1,000 spears. The Russian Revolution swept through the country like a wildfire. Tsar Nicholas II abdicated the throne, ending over 300 years of Romanov rule. The once great family Nicholas, his wife Alexandra, their 5 children Olga, Tatiana, Maria, Anastasia, and the sickly young heir Alexei were placed under house arrest. Their gilded palaces became prisons. Nicholas, once the most powerful man in Russia, was now powerless to protect his family. The Bolsheviks, led by Lenin, saw the Romanovs not just as political threats, but as dangerous symbols of the old world that had to be erased. In April 1918, the family was transferred to Yekaterinburg and imprisoned in the Ipatiev House, ominously renamed the House of Special Purpose. The executioned Romanovs lived in quiet tension. Their guards grew more hostile. The whispers of doom grew louder. Then, on the night of July 16, 1918, just after midnight, the family was awakened. They were told to dress quickly. The pretense? They were being moved for their safety as anti-Bolshevik forces approached. Nicholas carried his ailing son, Alexei, in his arms. Alexandra walked beside him, her daughters following like ghosts. They were led to the basement. There, the family was asked to line up. A few chairs were brought for Alexandra and Alexei. The room was still. A few moments passed, and then the door opened. Armed guards entered. One stepped forward and read a chilling decree. Nicholas Alexandrovich, in view of the fact that your relatives are continuing their attack on Soviet Russia, the Ural Executive Committee has decided to execute you. Before the Tsar could fully respond, the execution began. It was brutal. Bullets ricocheted off corsets lined with jewels. Desperate attempts by the Romanovs to hide their wealth became tragic barriers to a swift death. The daughters screamed. The smoke filled the room. Screams, shots, chaos. When silence returned, the imperial family was no more, or so the Bolsheviks claimed. But the aftermath left more questions than answers. Missing bodies. Executioners worked frantically to hide the crime. The bodies were taken to a remote forest outside Yekaterinburg, buried hastily in a shallow grave. But confusion reigned. Some accounts suggested 2 bodies were separated and buried elsewhere. Others hinted that not all members were accounted for. For decades, these inconsistencies fueled legends. In 1920, a woman was pulled from a canal in Berlin. She had tried to take her own life. She refused to reveal her identity until she whispered a name, Anastasia Romanov. The enigma of Anna. The woman was fragile, mysterious, and guarded. Hospital staff and curious onlookers noted her refined manners, her knowledge of royal etiquette, her haunting eyes that resemble those of the Romanov girls. Could she truly be the Grand Duchess Anastasia, the youngest daughter of Nicholas II? She eventually took the name Anna Anderson. Her claims divided the world. Survivors of the Russian court and Romanov relatives came to see her. Some swore she was Anastasia. Others called her a fraud. She remembered things no outsider should know: family nicknames, intimate habits of the Empress, the layout of the palaces. But just as often, her memory failed. Anna Anderson's battle for recognition lasted for decades. Court cases were fought in Germany. Historians scoured records. Skeptics pointed out inconsistent elements. Supporters pointed to the trauma of surviving such a massacre and years in hiding. And yet, Anna never wavered. She insisted she had survived, rescued by a sympathetic guard who smuggled her out of the house of death. She spoke of wandering through Russia in disguise, of escaping to Europe under false papers. Even as she aged, frail and weary, she held to her truth. I am Anastasia. I am the daughter of the Tsar. DNA and the cold truth. For decades, Anna's story captured the imagination of the world. Books, films, and even a beloved animated movie immortalized the idea that Anastasia had survived, a princess hidden among commoners, destined to return. But in 1991, after the fall of the Soviet Union, the truth began to emerge. A grave was discovered near Yekaterinburg containing the remains of the Tsar, the Empress, and 3 of the children. Forensic scientists confirmed their identities. But 2 bodies were missing, one daughter and the boy, Alexei. The flames of hope were reignited. Could Anastasia have survived after all? In 2007, a second grave was found. 2 more bodies. Through DNA testing, including samples from Prince Philip, a Romanov relative, scientists confirmed the grim reality. All 7 members of the Romanov family had died in that basement in 1918. Anna Anderson was not Anastasia. In fact, DNA showed she was a Polish factory worker named Franziska Shanskowska who suffered from mental illness and had vanished shortly before Anna's emergence. The legend endures, and yet, even with science seemingly putting an end to the mystery, the legend lives on. Why? Because stories of hope in the face of tragedy endure longer than facts. The idea of Anastasia surviving, escaping the horror and finding a quiet life far from the blood-stained walls of Ipatiev House touches something deep in the human heart. Even today, conspiracy theories and folklore swirl. Some claim the DNA tests were faked. Others say the Bolsheviks lied and secret escape routes were orchestrated. A few believe a Romanov descendant still walks among us, living in anonymity. There are whispers of diaries hidden in European monasteries, of paintings smuggled from Russia bearing secret clues, of old women in South America who claim to be royalty. More than just a princess, but beyond the myths, the tragedy of Anastasia Romanov remains hauntingly real. She was not just a fairy tale figure or a legend in exile. She was a real girl, lively, witty, mischievous, who wrote playful letters, laughed with her sisters, and doted on her fragile little brother. She once scribbled in her diary, "Someday, we will be happy again." She had no idea how wrong she would be. The Romanovs were not saints. Nicholas II was an effective ruler, and their court was detached from the suffering of their people. But in the end, they were a family torn apart by revolution, crushed by a world they could not understand. The final resting place, in 1998, 80 years after their execution, remains of Nicholas II, Nicholas II, Alexandra, and 3 of their children were finally laid to rest in Paul Cathedral in St. Petersburg, the traditional burial place of the Russian Tsars. President Boris Yeltsin attended the ceremony, declaring, "We all bear responsibility for the historical cruelty that was perpetrated in this city 80 years ago." The bodies of Alexei and one of the daughters, likely Maria, were interred in a separate ceremony in 2021. At last, the Romanov family was whole again, if only in death. The story of Anastasia Romanov is not just about royalty. It's about survival, of memory, of hope, of legends that refuse to die. We are drawn to the flicker of possibility that a young girl might have escaped, lived, and breathed beyond the shadows of her tragedy. But perhaps the greater truth is this: even if her body was lost for a time, her story never was. Her voice echoed in letters, in lullabies, in rumors passed from grandmother to granddaughter. Anastasia Romanov may have perished in 1918, but in our imagination, she lives on.
Subscribe and follow. Click on other videos, and it will help us grow our channel. Thank you for watching. We really appreciate your patronage. Click on other videos.